Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
It is Tim Fitzgerald with his favorite insiders. Big B, Brian Hanley up there in the corner. Next to him is Ryan Gilbert. In the lower corner is Cole Carmody, all of the Go Paracat staff. And that is Tim Everson, our buddy from the Manhattan Mercury. Four of us were in Colorado, and one other person wasn't surrounded by it. I don't want to say that word. Anyhow, Cole, you missed the trip. It was interesting.
Yeah.
It was a typical Colorado trip. I thought maybe when they had left the conference guys and then came back, maybe they would be a little bit different fan base, maybe a little more organized and run well. No, none of that. It was a rather hostile environment and not a great setup to cover a game either, but that's personal bitching. But I do want to give a shout out. First of all, I've heard a lot of secondhand stories. I'm not going to repeat those. I do want to give a shout out to the middle-aged woman who yelled as I was trying to get by, because that was a good setup, trying to go to the field after the game. That was really well executed. You got to go through the stands, through the crowd. And Tim and I are little fellas, but Gilbert's huge. And we were trying to get by, and this woman goes, I hate K-Staters. I hate them. And then she yells, I want to bleep and punch you in the face, K-State fans. This was like a 56-year-old woman. Just what is going on with the culture out there?
So this sounds like the Missouri setup where it was typical of last year, which thankfully for K-State, the game ended better. But I mean, last year for fans maybe who were at that game, I know some Mizzou fans weren't exactly the nicest, and the media members had to walk through the stands to get to the field. Last year sounds like a pretty similar situation with teams leaving the Big 12 and not having good media setups.
I would like to point out that we kind of had a general consensus amongst the media from the entire credentialing process to the post-game interviews. Missouri beats Colorado easily.
Okay. Absolutely.
And that says a lot because Missouri was horrible.
Yeah, well, at least Missouri, once they sorted out their parking and who had what, you knew what it was. This turned out to be a parking about 1.5 mile and a quarter away with unreliable bus service that apparently stopped running before the media was done working, asking the media to tote equipment more than a mile in the dark of an unfamiliar city.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it wasn't like crossing campus. You were in the town.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyhow, that's all personal bitching. Kansas State wins 31-28. I would like to apologize for my pick on my bitches 5 keys for victory. Pick 31-27. I apologize. I was off. That's a humble brag. That's what it was. Big B, you were there for the Big 12 Insiders. Just give me your overall thoughts on everything. I mean, what you take away from the experience of watching a game at Colorado, the actual game, any of that.
I mean, well, first off, you're right about all of it. I won't go back into how I had to get there. That was interesting. Let's just say I lost a little weight that day. Because you and Ryan saw me afterwards. It was a sweaty mess, but it is what it is. But, I went down on the field, and I'll tell you what, it was a show. It was an absolute show. I just walking around. There were all the stars that they showed on TV. I mean, it was even more. It looked like a concert of some sort down on the field before the game. But during the game, look, I just thought the atmosphere was great. Look, if you can get past drunk kids and crazy fans and all of that kind of stuff, if you can get past that, which I can get past, I know a lot of K-Staters can't get past that, and I don't blame you. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if I got somebody screaming in my face, profanity, I don't blame you. I can get past that, but I thought the atmosphere was electric. It was exactly what Kansas State needed, because I can tell you one thing, the entire country was watching that football game. Oh, yeah. That part I know for an absolute fact. I haven't heard any numbers or anything yet. I'm sure if you guys have, please educate me. I haven't heard that, but I know a lot. The country was watching. If you wanted to watch football, that was the only game that was on. So that's one thing. And K-State put their best foot forward. I'm not saying it was the cleanest game or anything like that, but they won the game. And a lot of people were rooting against Kansas State to win, and they won the football game under some pretty dark circumstances, or dire circumstances, I should say, because all they want to talk about is how Colorado players were hurt. And they always leave out that Kansas State, those guys, their defensive players were hurt. They leave all of that out conveniently. But
They're faking. They were faking.
All that matters.
They faked. Everything was fake.
Yeah. They didn't come back and play. But they were just faking. I don't want to play. We're trying to slow them down. So I'm going to sit out the rest of the football game to try to slow them down.
Yeah. Let's clarify. 3 guys went down in succession. It was like a rolling nightmare for K-State because the first one was Keenan Garber. Luckily, he was a cramp. Then Marquise Siegel went down. I'm not sure what his injury was. He tried to come back but couldn't play and ended up by the end of the game he wasn't on the field. And Jacob Parrish, the team's best cornerback, was faking an injury that required him not to return to the game. But how does
after he ran into his own guy? After he ran into his own guy and sustained that injury, by the way.
And all 3 guys were on the ground before the play was completed. Right. Faking injuries is like, having a fainting spell somewhere with nothing going on.
You're forgetting about Justice James, who was the first guy to go down who started.
That's right.
4 guys down on that drive.
That's right.
All of them secondary.
And they didn't come back.
No.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Only one guy came back because of cramps, but yet it was fake. I don't even want to get into it because it's just silly fodder that had no bearing on what was going on in the outcome. Guys, it's football, people. Guys get hurt, man. I say it a million times. Bones break, ligaments tear. It's unfortunate, but that is just a part of football.
I'd like to point out that our colleague Drew Galloway from our competition over at On3 said had a great tweet about he'll never forget how much Colorado fans celebrated and the bench celebrated when K-State picked up a first down on 4th and 1 to make it 1st and goal. It was at the 2-yard line and it was 4th and 1. And when they stopped him outside of the end zone, they just thought they'd stopped him. Even the team. Now, someone in the YouTube comments said, well, the scoreboard said 4th and 2 at the 2. And I'm like, well, again, this proves literally Colorado fans don't know football very well, including their scoreboard operator, because there is no such thing as 4th and 2 at the 2. It's 4th and 1 or 4th and goal. If you acquire 2 yards, it's a touchdown, not a first down. It's not 4th and 2.
It's just good sportsmanship. They were cheering to cheer on K-State for getting that first down. They were excited.
But with that, all that said, I want to say the Colorado student section was legit loud.
Yeah, it was.
They brought the heat. Congratulations.
I mean, they were screaming now. I was in the press box with you guys, but you could hear them. They were yelling. They were loud. It was obnoxious. But isn't that what a student section is supposed to be?
Absolutely.
It's supposed to be loud and obnoxious and yelling everything under the sun. That's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Speaking of obnoxious, Ryan Gilbert, tell me about your experience traveling to Boulder for the first time.
I had to spend 7 hours in a car with Tim Fitzgerald. So that was lovely. Got to share a hotel room.
Could you do your impression of me driving without
the curse
words? Could you do your impression of me driving, but without the curse words?
It's hard to do it without cursing. Yeah. So I had to drive for the last couple hours. Once we hit, I think Hayes, Fitz was too tired. And so I tried my best to get angry at the other cars on the road that were in the left lane, not going fast enough. And, Cole, you've been on road trips with us. So you know how that goes.
What is he doing? Oh my God.
Tim and Big B, you're missing out. You gotta have a road trip with us. But I mean, I'm personally, I think it's awesome to have fans that sell out a stadium and are loud. BYU, Colorado, I love that. But everyone watching obviously knows the bad side of what Colorado fans brought. But don't get it twisted. That was a hostile, hectic atmosphere that K-State went into. And guys, quite honestly, that was the biggest reason I picked against Kansas State. Against Tulane, against BYU, I really had no reason to believe that this team could fight back from adversity away from Bill Snyder Family Stadium. And I'm happy to be proved wrong. Things were snowballing after that Avery Johnson interception. 2 plays later, you've got a Colorado touchdown, and just 3 plays after that, K-State puts the nail in the coffin with that 50-yard strike to Jace Brown.
Tim Everson, your thoughts on that victory by K-State, which By the way, it wasn't just needed in the standings. They needed to prove to themselves they could go do that on the road, and they did.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Gil said. They showed that they could respond on the road, which is huge because they kind of showed it at Tulane, but not really. I mean, they were maybe kind of handed that Tulane win a little bit. They did not show it at all in Provo. And so that was just the biggest question left to answer from this team. Can they do it on the road against a team with some talent, with a pulse? And Colorado definitely had a pulse. They 100% thought that they were going to go in and win and then win comfortably, which is their own delusion. But still, they were convinced. And I mean, my biggest takeaway is that, K-State has some guys. They have some straight up dudes that, maybe aren't going to play, aren't going to be number one overall picks like Travis Hunter, aren't going to be maybe the number one quarterback off the board like Shedeur Sanders. But they got some guys that are going to play in the NFL for a long time. DJ Giddens is going to play for a long time. Brendan Mott is going to find a way to play in the league for a long time. Jace Brown, if he continues to keep going the way that he's doing, he's going to play. I mean, K-State has the talent, have everything, and they're putting it together right when they need to. And they're fun. They're super fun.
So, guys, Fitz, before we go any further, I want to say this because this has kind of been something that through the past almost 4 or 5 seasons that I've covered this team, I haven't really, after the game's over in our business, after the game's over, like the game's over and you move on. You really, we talk about it, but you really don't it doesn't really sit with you. Like the Big 12 championship was a little different. Like kind of step back and you're like, oh, wow, like this team just won the Big 12 championship and they're going to play Alabama. Like, that's actually crazy. And I think the Sugar Bowl I had that moment too. But, it took me a while to kind of digest what I had watched. And maybe that was partly because as soon as the game was over, it was 1:00 in the morning over here. And I was trying to relax before I could get some sleep so I could wake up and do the podcast. But I think the more that I've thought about that win, the more I think it can be a springboard going forward. And I think it can be a springboard going forward for a number of reasons. But the main reason, guys, is because I actually think Colorado is a good football team. Now, do they have their flaws? They 100% have their flaws, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. But they are not going to face any skilled players the rest of the season, at least in the regular season, that are as good as the guys they saw on Saturday night. And I think the biggest question mark we had going into this game was, how would the secondary look? And yeah, you can talk about Horn being hurt. You can talk about Hunter being hurt. But like we mentioned, guys, Daniel Cobbs was playing in the game. Some people didn't even know who that guy was. Justice James at times was the number one cornerback. Zayshawn Rich, who was an 83 composite overall true freshman, was playing cornerback against Shedeur Sanders. It's crazy. That is the equivalent of Keenan Garber having 2 weeks of cornerback after he was receiver playing in the Big 12 championship game. I think we're going to look back on this game. This is going to be a game, and I wrote this, but it feels like a star was born on Saturday with Avery Johnson. And I mean, I understand he had the interception, but the way he was able to bounce back, him running into the locker room and then coming back out immediately after and getting in the huddle and throwing a touchdown pass, there's just all these things. The kids talk about having a lot of aura. I don't know if you guys know what that means, but it felt like this Kansas State team is starting to develop this aura to them. They're starting to have this swagger. They're starting to find their identity. And it's exciting because that game that they played on Saturday, like you mentioned, Brian, so many people watched. And now they are going to be in the radar because that is a team that people are going to want to watch because they play an exciting brand of football and they have some legitimate stars like you talked about, Tim. I mean, I think it's a big deal. And I think it's a bigger deal than what people are talking about for basically all the reasons that I just said.
Got some great topics you guys just put me on to for later, but let's show this. I appreciate it. I don't know if it's Beezy or Be Easy. World, good game. You all got away. See you soon. Congrats. Colorado comes to Manhattan in 25, and in 26, Kansas State returns to Boulder. They don't play in 27. Did I get that right, Gilbert? I think I got that.
You've
right.
Got it. Yep.
appreciate the words, and the Buffaloes are indeed really good. And I got to say this, we're now seeing Dion put together a team. This team they played really well on Saturday. That was a great college football game. K-State was fortunate to get out there with a win, but they did it. Our friend here, Joshua Culver, just kicked us some cash because he loves us, apparently. Sir, if you have a question, put it down there in the comments. We will get to you, but thank you for your support so much. And here is a free question, but I like it. I'm surprised Dylan Edwards isn't used more in the passing game. I'd consider him a slot receiver. That has been often a topic, but also getting him acclimated. Keep in mind, he didn't transfer in the spring. He was at Boulder for the spring. It was only after that he came in the summer, so he missed spring football. So he's kind of learning on the fly a little bit here, and he is settling into a pretty good position at running back. We all like it best when DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards are on the field with Avery Johnson, but that they don't do that often. They did it surprisingly little, if at all, at CU. But the kid's special, and he's been a great benefit to this football team. Keep the comments coming. Let's back up, though. Man, Cole said it, Big B, Avery Johnson. He's beginning to be Avery Johnson. And I know people may not understand that, but I wasn't hard on him. I was not understanding why he wasn't kind of playing the way he plays earlier in the season. And now he is. And I got news for you folks. Sometimes that gunslinger, that guy who's going to put his nose in everyone's business and run the ball when he needs to, when he's healthy, that'll be another topic. He's going to throw a pick once in a while. He just is. You throw over the middle in big league football, whether it's the Power 4 or the NFL, it's risky. And he threw a pick. But boy, you saw what he can do when he came back. Big B, I think Cole's right. A star was born. That was a big stage, an awfully big stage. Thanks to Dion, thanks to Colorado, because they're getting a lot of viewers. And Avery Johnson just showed a lot of people he's a damn good quarterback as a true sophomore.
Well, not just that. He did it without running the football because he couldn't run the football. Because he got dinged up, whatever the injury that he had to his hip, he couldn't run the football. So, to me, I don't even know if we're going to say a star is born. I think that happened last year, to be honest with you. Now he's just getting the attention. This will get him even more attention. I remind people this all the time, whether you want to say that Colin Klein was the greatest K-State quarterback or Michael Bishop. Obviously, I'm going to say that because I'm partial, but I truly believe that, though. They weren't good throwing the football their first years as starters either. And I mean, Michael Bishop wasn't good at all throwing the football. He could throw it a long way, but he wasn't very accurate. It wasn't until the next season. Avery's more accurate than both of those guys are right now in his first year starting. I'm not saying he's a great passer, but he's more accurate than those guys are. And as soon as he gets, and maybe it's coming now, I think you're right, Fitz, gets rid of I just got to go out and play football. Whatever happens, happens. But I can't just sit back and not worry about getting hurt, because usually that's when you do get hurt, is when you're worried about not getting hurt. Football's tough enough. He can't, and he's got enough to process. Now you got to process, well, I got to get down. I can't get hurt. Just go play. And whatever's going to happen is going to happen. More times than not, I'll be honest, people, I know football injuries are part of football, but do you know how many guys play a long time and don't get hurt? Everybody just doesn't get hurt playing football. That's not how it works. I know we see our share of injuries, but that's just not how it works. Everybody doesn't always get hurt to where they can't play anymore. So just got to go out there and play football. I think he's playing great. The fortitude that he showed to come back after throwing that interception. And I told everybody, I was sitting next to a guy in the press box, and I just said, you know what? He threw the pick, but I almost wish that they did return it for a touchdown.
Exactly.
Because it gave K-State more time. So for them to run all the way down there, I'm like, well, K-State's not going to stop them. They're going to score a touchdown. So they might as well score it quickly so we have more time. Turns out K-State almost gave them too much time because we scored too fast. So it is what it is. I think Avery is just fine. I love your analogy, though, Cole. The Star is Born. I think it happened last year at the Texas Tech game, but I get it. More people are watching this game
Yep.
than maybe I don't know. I don't want to say more than K-State combined last year, but you know how many people were watching this football game? It was absolutely incredible. And for him to be able to do that to win the football game, yeah, it kind of puts him on the map. If he's not already on the map, this would put him on the map.
Interesting. Ryan Gilbert, we've watched Avery kind of not play very well at Tulane to kind of getting rattled at BYU to being a cool customer throughout a game at Boulder in front of a huge audience, in front of a bunch of star athletes and singers and on the sideline. It's crazy what's going on at CU. And he's grown up before our very eyes, and he's got a lot more growing he can do.
Popped up on my phone today, as a matter of fact, in Lubbock was 1 year ago, where Avery Johnson obviously had that big performance that, you know, whether that was his coming out party or as you guys mentioned it, the star was born, right? I mean, that's 1 year ago from today, which is funny. But one thing with Avery Johnson is that interception he threw, I'm not really too critical of it at all. It was 4th down. I get so frustrated when a quarterback either takes a sack or just throws the ball out of bounds on 4th down.
Yeah.
That is the cardinal sin of a quarterback. And so Johnson had to try and go out and make a play. Now, was it a fluky way that the ball bounced and, you know, Colorado's return deep down the field? Like, maybe, sure, but you're not going to expect that to happen. That's just so Johnson tried to go out and make a play. So I'm really not going to fault him for that. If anybody, I'm not necessarily saying you have to take this stance, but if anybody, you have to fault Chris Kleiman for that decision on 4th down, not Avery Johnson. Again, I'm not saying it's Kleiman's fault. I get what he was thinking. He had a nice explanation post-game as to why he wanted to do that. He was not going to let his team lose 28-27. Had K-State kicked a field goal, Colorado went down and scored. So Johnson, I mean, game by game, he's getting better and better, guys.
And Fitz, I want to say this. There was a tweet from our good friend Sheehan from CBS Sports, who covers national college football writer for CBSSports.com. And he tweeted this out right after Avery's throw to Jace. He said, the thing about Avery Johnson is that sometimes he makes throws like that, and someday he'll make them consistently. And so it's not just people who cover this team that are seeing that. It's guys who cover the conference. It's guys who cover college football as a whole. And like, you know, I look at the quarterback play around the country. Go back to the week before. Nico Imalavi-Leva, I believe is how you say his last name, from Tennessee. Okay. The sophomore breakout quarterback who everybody has raved about had a chance to go win the game. And Gilbert, you brought it up. What does he do? He throws the ball away when they're on the 15-yard line at Arkansas and Tennessee loses. Avery Johnson throws a 50-yard touchdown pass on the road against Colorado. And guys, I'm not trying to be facetious here, but you look at what Will Howard and that whole situation that transpired in the game at Oregon, another game on the road. And like, winning on the road in college football is very hard. And quarterbacks are under immense pressure. And so obviously everyone saw what happened with Will, wasn't able to get a pass off, and Ohio State ends up losing that game. And I just think it says more about Avery's persona than it does his skill. It says more about his mindset, that he's able to immediately get back in the saddle, not worry about it, and lead that team down the field for ultimately not just a game-ending touchdown, guys, but a game-ending bomb. It was really cool to see.
Tim Everson, is Avery Johnson the baby-faced assassin?
They very well could be. I mean, I meant to ask him this earlier because I don't think any media got a chance to. He's just he does have that aura of cool about him, and you saw it when he in the second half, he's on the sideline, he's doing the bike, and he takes the selfie. The fans try to get him to take the selfie. You see him, he takes the phone. His face doesn't change the entire time. He grabs the phone, takes the picture, and then just hands it back. His eyes still watching the game the entire time. He's got it. I mean, and we've said it for a while. I mean, you could tell that even in high school, you could tell that he's got the special in him, whatever that is, the je ne sais quoi, that the elite guys have, and it's not consistent yet because he's, it's going to get there, but you see it in flashes. And when it does start to pop up, it's super cool. It's super cool to experience. It's super cool to see up close and in person, whether it's, the 50-yard bomb or whether it's avoiding a sack and run, just the stuff that he can do that no one else can do is great. And it really kind of exemplifies how lucky K-State is to kind of have him and get him for as long as they can, as they can.
Okay, let me get back to the comments. We got some super chats. Make sure if you want to get your comment on the show, you do a super chat. You're seeing the $ down there. But I want to put this one up. Bubba Man, I have Graves' disease, making my eyes rather light sensitive. So among my other failings is I blink a lot. So get used to it. Brian Kaufman, bring it on here. Y'all hear anything about the refs were so puckered up about K-State fans celebrate or K-State players celebrating? It was weird. It was like the old way where you were supposed to just score a touchdown and leave. That's how they were acting. But my thought is they weren't trying to punish K-State or prevent them from having fun. They were trying to keep things under control, because that was, in fairness, a hostile, not just a boo the other team hostile. This was an interesting social experiment. They wanted to kill everyone on the field at times. So I don't think DJ Giddens, or not DJ Giddens, certainly Dylan Edwards or Avery Johnson dancing for too long was going to be put up with. Someone was coming on the field. It was yuck. It was very hostile. Jackson, what do you got here? Were we too hard on Connor Riley as an offensive coordinator early? Consistent success with DJ, good tight end play in games, and win with AJ's arm receiver. Look, Connor Riley was new to this, and he was going to have a learning curve no matter what, whether it was one game or one season, which you hope it wasn't that long. And his improvement isn't just because he's gotten better at it. He now understands what his team does well, and that mostly is give the ball to DJ Giddens. That also doesn't mean he's insane. If you put 8 in the box, he's going to still try to run the ball. He's going to take what the defense gives you, which, brought them all in. You got him. You did exactly what a play caller wants to do. You dominated the line of scrimmage to the point where they put as many assets in the box, close to the line of scrimmage as they possibly could, and then you threw the deep ball. And that's what a good OC does, and he's getting there very quickly, but also understanding what you got as a team. What is Avery's nuances, what he's good at, what he's bad at. You can see practice all you want. You go to a game, and that's a little bit different. He's catching up on it. But no matter what an offensive coordinator does, Big B, someone will say they suck. That's just the nature of the job.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Heck, I second-guessed it, second to last drive.
Mm-hmm.
You're going for it on fourth. You get down there. Why don't you run it on second and third down to get closer? I said the same thing. And that's the golden rule anyway. If you're going for it on fourth, you have to run it on third. I don't care how many people they got in the box. You just got to run it to try to get closer, especially where they were on the field. But, you're right. He got better. And that's all you can ask is for somebody to continuously get better. And he has, So, but offensive coordinator, nobody likes him. We've discussed that. Nobody likes the offensive coordinator, but he got better. And it's just what you said. Colorado couldn't stop the run. Let's just put that out. If anybody watched the game and didn't come to that conclusion, they couldn't stop it with 7 people in the box. They had to put 8 people down. They had to. And even then, their single high safety had to be at 7 yards. Think about that for a second. 7 yards to be able to stop the run. So that they basically had 9 guys. If we were running 22 personnel, or not even 22, just 12 personnel, they had to put 9 guys to be able to stop it. And when they did, K-State said, fine, we're going to throw the ball over your head. You think about that, though. That's crazy that with 2 minutes to go, they were still so afraid of K-State running the football that they put that many people at the line of scrimmage. That's what I think. I thought it was hilarious because I'm like, they're so afraid because It's not like we're running for 4 and 5 yards. We're getting 12, 20, 17 a pop. They had to put that many guys down there and just say, hey, if you beat us, you beat us. Well, we beat them, and it is what it is.
Big B, as a defensive guy, I mean, I know you're an offensive lineman, but as a defensive guy, I just don't understand. Talking about Deion Sanders, I'm shocked. Like, he criticized Baylor for, at the end of the game, for letting them, for running essentially man coverage with one high safety and them throwing a Hail Mary to send that game into overtime. He criticized Baylor, or he said, I was surprised that they did that, or whatever he said. I have to go back and look at the comments, but he mentioned it. And yet there was absolutely zero mention of his team doing the exact same thing. Literally, all Jace Brown had to do was beat his man off the line. And people forget there was a pass interference on that play. So even if that's not a touchdown, that's a 15-yard penalty. And K-State's probably on the 30-yard line, the 35-yard line, potentially able to run some more clock off of more time off of the clock and go in and score. I was surprised they did that, but you're right. When you can have the big play via the run, which credit to DJ Giddens, because at this point, guys, anytime any kind of defensive back is in a one-on-one situation, if it's the safety versus DJ Giddens, the safety's not making the tackle. Like, somebody put in the comment box, like, was Shiloh Sanders' ankle still on the field after the game? And like, that could very realistically be a possibility, because he made Shiloh look really bad a number of times. And I think it was just a matter of DJ Giddens deciding, you know what, I'm better than you. And as great as the offensive line played, anytime a running back, and throw Dylan Edwards into that matter, anytime a running back is one-on-one with the safety, I feel like these Kansas State running backs will win.
I thought DJ was very nice to Shiloh Sanders. He gave him plenty of times to get close with God, because he did a lot of kneeling after he fell to his knees. It was really, really nice. Ryan Gilbert, this K-State team, we mentioned it earlier, hadn't looked good on the road. They win at Colorado. Now you have to turn around and go to West Virginia. Someone made a comment about how they caught up on sleep. I think I caught up on sleep after today's press conference with a 2-hour nap. That was marvelous. It was wonderful. I feel good now. Granted, I'm an old fart, but is this going to have some wear and tear on this team? They got back at 5 a.m. They go to practice today. They got to leave for a game on Friday afternoon. This almost feels like an NFL schedule. Back-to-back road games that require this kind of travel.
Yeah, and Kansas State had this, but then it had a bye, right? And so going on the road, it's going to be a little different. This is back-to-back tough road tests, but West Virginia doesn't look nearly as daunting as it once did. Add in the travel and all that stuff, though. The biggest thing, really, from my perspective, is you've got Kansas coming up after this West Virginia game. An emotional victory, certainly, without a doubt, in Boulder. Can't get caught looking ahead. Can't get caught being too high off of that last performance. I can't remember which player it said. I think it was Avery Johnson, maybe not today. Staying neutral, not getting too high, not getting too low, and that couldn't be more true for this team after the circumstances of the last game, and obviously what's coming up next weekend after, or I guess 2 weeks from now, after West Virginia.
Tim Everson, I'm going to ask you a question that you couldn't possibly know the answer.
Good.
That's what kind of good host I am. What do you expect from West Virginia after losing a really big game against Iowa State this past weekend? They now have a loss in the conference. It was their Cole game, which is important. It was really cool. But now they got Kansas State coming in. What do you expect from West Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point that they've kind of played themselves out of being in Big 12 championship contention. Short of, they're going to need a lot of help
running the
at this
table
point if they're able to do that. And so now it's just kind of like, if this season goes worse, is this Neil Brown battling for his job again? Because he kind of had the resurrection last season. They win the bowl game. Neil Brown is found. He said that they weren't going to finish last. They have a good season. This was supposed to build on that, but it's definitely not doing that. And they haven't. They brought enough back to take that next step. And they didn't get it done in the non-conference either, which also hurts them. So I would imagine that they'll want to battle for their coach still. Morgantown's always tough, so that's there. But it is kind of a weird situation because it's like, yeah, what's the next tier of what we can fight for after not being in Big 12 contention?
Yeah, but they actually are. They only lost one conference game.
Isn't it only one?
So
Okay.
the two games that they lost, I mean, they lost to Penn State and they lost to Pitt. So they lost to Iowa State. So they actually are in contention for the Big 12. So I would say they're going to fight. It's just what you said, Tim. I think they're going to fight for their head coach because they did it all last year. I find it hard to believe that they're going to quit now, especially when the conference is the way that it is. Everything is still out in front of them because, you know, looking at their schedule, obviously they have us, they have Arizona, they have Cincinnati, Baylor, UCF, and Texas Tech. That's not daunting. You know, you take out Kansas State, and I mean, even you get K-State at home, they got a shot. So I would think that they're going to continue to fight. Now, the blueprint on how to beat them is pretty clear. Make the quarterback throw it to beat you because he's going to throw the football to you. All you have to do is catch it. And if you can stop him from running, you can beat West Virginia. So that's the thing. And that's what Iowa State did. But I would think they're going to fight like hell, but I just don't know that it's going to be enough because as much grit as their quarterback showed last year, you can take that away if you just make him throw the football. And he's not a good thrower of the football. So
Fitz, I'm going to jump in before we get to our super chat on the topic of West Virginia. They are currently on an 8-game losing streak against teams ranked inside of the top 25. This comes from our friend Mike Kazaz over at Your Sports. And if you're a VIP member at Go Power Cat, definitely encourage you to go read a piece he put up. So I'm taking these numbers, and here are the margin of defeat. The margin of defeat in those 8 games for West Virginia. They've lost those 8 games to top 25 teams, 21, 17, 10, 7, 39, 23, 22, and 12 points. That's 20 points per game. And so
well, that 12 too, also, Cole, that's a window dressing touchdown they scored the other night too.
Yep. So again, is West Virginia going to fight? They 100% are going to fight. But Gilbert, I'm going to throw this to you because I know you're a big guy who likes to follow the trends. The trends tell us that Neil Brown doesn't really compete that well in big-time games. And those are just the facts. That's not my opinion. That is just the facts. In his 6 years there, they've won 1 game against a top 25 team. 1 game against a top 25 team. Will that place be juiced on Saturday? I 100% think that place will be juiced on Saturday. But I think there's going to be a little bit less juice than it would have been had they beaten Iowa State. I think there's a lot of West Virginia fans who are kind of ready to move on. And I think if they if they lose to K-State, that ball might start to get rolling a little bit more. I mean, we've heard some things out of West Virginia that, you know what, Neil Brown wants to back out of this game. He wants to back out of that game. I don't know. Guys, I really like this matchup for K-State. You look at the statistics, and it's basically like K-State versus K-State. Like from on paper, they don't throw the ball a ton. When they do, they turn it over. They run the ball a lot more, except K-State has a lot better running back, and the defense isn't as good. And so I think all of the signs are pointing to K-State in this game, which probably means West Virginia is going to find a way to win. But, you know, it just weird things happen. But I mean, on paper, this looks like a slam dunk matchup for K-State.
Okay, let's bring up the super chat. Thank you so much, David Kilgore, for this great show, guys. Any thoughts about West Virginia, which we just shared? Do you all see Avery contending for a Heisman anytime during his career? You know, if you roll it back to preseason, Avery at one point was, I think, only second to Shedeur in Big 12 odds, ahead of Ollie Gordon, which made no sense to me. But as you know, quarterbacks go, he had a lot of juice coming into the season. I think people cooled down because he looked like a sophomore, a true sophomore, a 19-year-old kid starting college games for the first time. But now he's settling in. So, yeah, I mean, having performances like that on a very big stage, again, thank you for allowing Kansas State to borrow that stage, Colorado. You have brought a lot of eyeballs to this conference, and I salute you for that. And but that allowed Avery to catch the eyes of a lot of people. This is what this kid can do, and he didn't use his legs very much on Saturday, which is probably the strength of his game. Someone asked earlier about the nature of his injury. I am guessing, this is pure guesswork, it's a hip pointer. He said he got hit on the ground, his hip got hit, but knee or something. That can hurt and go away, and then it just comes back and exactly how it happened, just knocks you over. So I think he was all right. Nothing a little needle to the old hip can't take care of. And I think he's going to be fine. But Avery Johnson has an enormous upside. I think most K-Staters expect next year will be his last year, but they don't want that. They don't want that at all. Guys, let's get back.
Fine. I think, first of all, the season's not over.
Nope.
We've seen plenty of guys win a Heisman the last 6-7 games of the year. They catch fire. So I wouldn't say that now. You got to contend with the guy that should be on everybody's Heisman ballot currently that plays on your football team. And if he's not on everybody's, I'm not saying he's got to be the front runner, but he shouldn't be fifth. I can assure you of that. And if he's not, then, everybody talks about a certain bias against K-State, then that would be true. And I don't even buy into that, but it would be true. I just don't want to hear it. I got in it today with people talking about somebody was a better running back in the Big 12 conference and that. Look, there's great running backs in the Big 12 conference. There are great ones. DJ's just better than them. He does everything that you want, including catching the football. And that's even including him dropping a walk-in touchdown on Saturday, which he did, which he came back and made one of the biggest plays of the game right after that. So I just, it is what it is.
You're talking about DJ Giddens. I figured you were talking about Dante Cephas. I mean,
Dante had a fine game.
He did. He had like 2 or 3 catches. Yeah.
Dante made his presence known.
He did.
First drive.
I will say is the only thing that's holding DJ back is the fact that even though he is leading the Big 12 in total yards per carry, and another thing, he only has 2 rushing touchdowns.
Correct.
So far this season. Yeah. Wow. I know, right? Yeah. It's just one of those things. Whenever they gotten down in the red zone, it's either been Avery or it's been Dylan or they've thrown it. But yeah, only has 2 rushing.
Like he did all that on Saturday and didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah,
I know.
It's crazy. You're right, Tim. It's crazy.
Yep. Let's get to this one. Our friend Kane had West Virginia and Kansas lose more than they get beat concerning games. I totally agree with you, Kane Ed. KU particularly has self-destructed. That's a dangerous football team. If they calm down and play the way they're capable, particularly at quarterback, and the offensive coordinator pulls his head out of, they're a real threat when they come to Manhattan. West Virginia, they're very good, and they just beat Kansas. But I think they were kind of over their skis a little bit last year. They benefited from a schedule that was perfect for Neil Brown, and they've run into a little bit more resistance this season, and it's not working out well. But and also, if you wanted an explanation on why the officials acted the way they did with end zone celebrations, Kenneth gave a great one up top. See if you agree or disagree with him on that. But he knows his refereeing. He does. So, guys, let's circle back to a guy that it's time to give him his flowers. Brendan Mott is a man possessed. And I don't know, someone mentioned he's going to be an NFL player. I don't know. He's probably a middle linebacker. I don't know what he would be at the NFL level. He's too light to be a D end. We know that. Is he fast enough as an outside linebacker to cover tight ends? Maybe. He moves pretty well. But again, and I saw, some comment that CU fans were saying about Brendan Mott. Kansas State's good for a corn-fed white guy to turn into something unbelievable. Jordy Nelson did it. Ben Sinnott just did it. And now on the defensive side, we're seeing Brendan Mott do it. Totally unexpected based on what they were coming out of high school and playing at an absolute elite level. Brendan Mott was a just absolute beast on Saturday, disrupting as best he could. The guy that now probably is getting my number one Heisman vote, if I had a vote today, Shedeur Sanders, Ryan Gilbert, Brendan Mott, getting it done. And he was really good in postgame too. It was really interesting. He was really relaxed.
Yeah, he's come a long way, and he knows he's comfortable now with everything. And so many underrated players on Kansas State's roster. DJ Giddens, I think, is at the top of that list. But after a national game like Big B, you mentioned the eyes on this one. I know the Big 12 conference, the official Twitter account said something about DJ Giddens coming out, and I was like, everyone's on Twitter like, no, like we all knew DJ Giddens was like this, but I think everybody's just now starting to realize and understand that. But now with Mott, and the things that don't show up on the stat sheet, guys, are really where Mott makes his difference, pressuring the quarterback and creating havoc, grabbing a double team, whatever it may be. You're not getting sacks on those plays, but the way the entire offense has to revolve kind of around one player, Big B. I know our Steelers with TJ Watt. It's not identical or anything like that, but it's similar where offenses have to hone in on one specific player and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Mott is his motor. You know, like you mentioned, Fitz, I'm not sure where he's going to play. I think outside linebacker in the NFL would be that, because most of those guys are just rushing. 9 times out of 10, they're not dropping in coverage. They'll have to do it sometime, but he's athletic enough to be able to do that. But it's just his motor, and he has to be accounted for. Now, again, here's the thing, and I'll say this, and people may get mad. Colorado's offensive line is terrible. It's not bad. It's not atrocious. It's just, well, maybe it is atrocious. Maybe atrocious is a stronger word than terrible. But if Brendan Mott's a good football player, his job is to dominate the atrocious guy across from him. And that's exactly what he did. So, it's just sometimes football is easy. And, physically it can be hard, but sometimes it's, hey, I'm better than you, and I'm just going to beat you every single snap. And that's literally what Brendan Mott did. He just said, I'm better than you. You can't block me ever, and I'm not going to let you block me. Now, he didn't get a sack every play, but the disruption that he had in the football game, Lord have mercy, it was unbelievable, the type of disruption that he had. And again, we can talk about Colorado all we want, but they didn't make any adjustments. They just kept having 5 guys block, and we just kept beating them. And sooner or later, Kansas State figured it out. It's like, we don't have to blitz these guys anymore. We can get pressure with our front 4, and that's exactly what happened. They just kept twisting, and Colorado guys just couldn't pick it. Just refuse to be able to pick up a twist, something that you see at junior high level. They couldn't do it. Just could not do it. I thought it would. At one point, I started laughing because I'm like, they are really this bad. But K-State did exactly what they need to do. I commend Brendan Mott, because it's just what I said earlier, and I'm going to repeat it. He was better than their guy, and he just said, you can't block me on any down. No matter what you do, you can't block me, and I'm not going to let you. Good for him.
And you know who else did that? Ryan Davis with his first career sack.
Yes.
Chidi Obiazar. Let's see who else. Jordan Allen got into the game, and I thought was phenomenal at defensive end. I mean, go down the list. I mean, Jordan Allen, we're number 91, by the way. He looked like the number 91 that played at K-State a few years ago with how he was being held. I actually think they called a holding penalty when Colorado had picked up a first down. They brought it back because there was holding on the play or something along those lines. He was really good. But again, it's just, you're right, Brian, like their offensive line is horrible. And I caught a lot of flack because I came on this very show and I said that Kansas State has an enormous advantage or an extreme advantage or something like that in the trenches. And I'm like, I didn't even think that was a hot take. And all of these Colorado podcasts picked it up, didn't credit us. But, I guess sometimes the people who do watch the games do know what they're talking about. But yeah, you're right. I mean, their offensive line is horrible. Like, let's just call it what it is. And I know that they'll never say this. Kansas State defensive line would never say this. But Big B, they probably get a better look in practice from their scout team than what they saw on Saturday. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that some of those backups K-State have would be better than the offensive lineman that Colorado has. And
I don't disagree at all with that.
So, I mean, yeah, like that is, it's just how it is. And so you guys were talking about Brendan Mott, and I'll finish with this. he's listed at 245 pounds. And I honestly, I think that's probably a stretch. I don't think he's 245 pounds. He's probably closer to 235. But you look around the NFL, and 255 is about that weight for an edge rusher that I think NFL teams look at. Felix, who we already mentioned, is 255. I looked up Max Crosby to see because I felt like he was one of the lighter guys. He's 255. And so if Brendan Mott can, at the combine, find a way to be 255 pounds, which, again, seems like a stretch, then he's got a shot. But unless he can get up to that point, he's got to have some other really good measurables to have an NFL career that goes a long time. But you're right. He's one heck of a college player, and he has been passing the torch to these younger guys that, you know what, we don't talk about this defensive line enough because they have some really skilled guys on that team, and Brendan Mott is right at the top.
We're getting near the end here, but Tim, I wanted to ask you, Cole brought up something really good. We go back 2 seasons ago. Felix Anudike-Uzomah is a dominant force. He ends up being a first-round pick. And Brendan Mott has a really good season opposite him. But we all decided it was because he was opposite a guy that had to be double-teamed. Last year, Brendan Mott's pretty good without Felix around. This year, he is Felix Anudike-Uzomah. He's absolutely playing out of his mind and being disruptive. And now the result of what happened on Saturday, I truly believe this offenses are going to have to scheme and account for him on every pass play for sure.
And then who's going to be left open?
Really good one. Yeah.
There's a lot. And then the answer to that is there's so many options, young, talented options, probably more physically gifted than Brendan Mott options that are going to get opportunities to make a difference. And it's exciting. I mean, it's exactly what you want. If you're K-State, it's to have someone that makes the other team dedicate resources to you because you have the guys that you can cycle in and out. I don't know. I love it. I love watching him. He's so fun. Super great kid. So fun to talk to.
Yep.
Just, I don't know. He's just one of those. Obviously, he's not a Kansas kid. He's an Iowa kid, but he's just one of those K-State stories.
Yep.
That he will just go down with the names that you said, the Ryan Muellers of the world,
yep.
the Ian Campbells of the world. I mean, just
Joe
fun guys.
Yep. I got to get this one in before we're over because you know me, guys. I like a good dad joke, even though I'm not a dad. Is there any truth to the rumor that DJ didn't travel back with the rest of the team? He just ran through Colorado on his way back to Kansas.
We didn't see him, Fitz.
No,
he wasn't all along I-70.
It might explain why Lyman was on its knees. It tried to tackle him. Guys, any final thoughts? I feel like a win in West Virginia just opens up the possibilities for Kansas State because now they're at a point for the first time where they've got more home games remaining than road games. And those road games are interesting, and it's Houston, who's improving, and Iowa State to end the season. But mixed in there's 3 home games and an off week. I feel like that game signifies the steepest part of the schedule. What do you think, Big B? If K-State wins, are they really that set up, or is that even possible in the Big 12?
Let me look here. I don't know that they would necessarily be set up, but it definitely helps. Look, I think the game Saturday is enormous. I really do. Fitz, you mentioned this game at the very beginning of the season as you thought it was going to be kind of a litmus test for this football team. Well, it will be. Again, West Virginia is not going to quit. Everything that West Virginia wants to accomplish is literally right out in front of them. So they can still do it. They felt like, okay, we got manhandled against Iowa State, and they did, but they got another opportunity. Kansas State has to be able to match that intensity, especially early, because we haven't gotten off to the greatest starts. So I think if they can win this game, yeah, it sets them up. Because like you mentioned, it's Kansas, it's Houston, Arizona State is better, Cincinnati, and then the end of the season. They got an opportunity, but some of these games that we thought were going to be not easy, but just very manageable at the beginning of the season are turning out they're not actually that manageable, but we just have to happen to have them at home. So this one is big for Kansas State. Huge.
Gills, your thoughts?
Yeah, Fitz. I actually put this kind of exact same thing up on the Twitter sphere earlier today. the remaining 4 games after West Virginia, K-State's FPI gives K-State at least a 70% chance to win all 4 of those games. And kind of depending on where you look, those numbers are even greater than 70%. So win this one against West Virginia, and you are most certainly in the driver's seat to go to Arlington and secure a spot. Maybe not to win it, but who knows? Maybe that game against Iowa State doesn't mean anything for K-State or Iowa State, one of those 2 teams when in that final week of the season. We'll see how the Big 12 shapes up, but a win in Morgantown and K-State, like I said, is in the driver's seat.
Cole, I'm just glad Cincinnati and Arizona State are coming to Manhattan, because I wouldn't want to go to either place right now. It'd be like going back to BYU.
Yep.
And unexpected teams in the Big 12 are common, but this league is upside down right now. Basically, it didn't matter what the preseason poll said. Some teams are better and some teams are worse, and West Virginia's right in the middle. Huge game.
Yeah, K-State feels like is the only team that's kind of performing to expectations, as far as, winning as many games as I think people around the country thought. This game is massive, but let's not forget the last time K-State was in Morgantown, it was a very similar situation. West Virginia, I want to say, was 3-6. Later in the season, K-State was pushing for that Big 12 title berth, and I don't think very many people were very excited to go to Morgantown, because it was one of those games where it was on ESPN Plus. Like, it felt like kind of a trap game. Well, we talked about Brendan. Yeah, and it was. Yeah, and I remember you guys were out there for that game. I don't know if you guys remember this or not. Brendan Mott had Defensive Player of the Week that week in Morgantown. He had 3 sacks and was the leading tackler in this game. So let it be known that, we're talking about Brendan Mott. Neil Brown knows all well who Brendan Mott is. But you're right, guys, and there is a world that exists, and it's probably not a too far-fetched world, where there is a 12-0 BYU or an 11-1 BYU, an 11-1 K-State, and an 11-1 Iowa State. And if that is indeed the circumstance, I know that we're talking about K-State, but I have to feel very good about K-State, or about the Big 12 rather, getting multiple teams in the college football playoff. And I think K-State, quite honestly, is in that top 3 of teams. I think Iowa State, give all the credit in the world to Iowa State for winning the games that have been on their schedule. They have some good wins. I think winning at West Virginia was a good win. I think beating Iowa was a good win. But again, there's that question that persists with Matt Campbell, that K-State fans have already crossed that bridge. They crossed the bridge.
You got it. I like that. Yeah.
Iowa State hasn't won 10 games under Matt Campbell yet.
Nope,
and so K-State's done that.
Ever.
K-State's done that with Chris Kleiman. So until they do that, I maybe that's bad to say, but I'm ready to say that K-State and BYU are the 2 best teams in this conference.
Tim Everson went to Morgantown 2 years ago. They started some guy named Garrett Green. Who's this dude? He's turned out to be the dude. I mean, the team takes on his personality. This one's huge, because that kid can lead you through a battle, and that's what Saturday will be in Morgantown.
Yeah, he's gutty. He's a gutty kid. He's not afraid to play a game that's not maybe the most fun to watch. But it's those guys that seem to have the huge hearts, and maybe huge other parts of your body that oh man,
I think he meant balls. Balls.
I didn't mean that. They're dangerous, but at the same time, they're also guys that can make mistakes, as he has done throughout the entire season. He's been known to throw the ball to the wrong team quite often. He's fast, he can run the ball, but also K-State has the second best rush defense, not in the conference, but in the entire country right now.
Yep.
And so if they're able to tamp down on that, I feel really, really good about what they're going to do in Morgantown.
That was Tim Everson, our guest insider for the week. Boys, we're going to close up shop right now. I thank you very much for your insights. We're just getting started at Go Power Cat, covering the Cats, going to West Virginia. CU is now officially in the rearview mirror. It's okay now to think of moonshine in Morgantown.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production.